We'll be live in 1, 2.
You might.
All right, we are live.
The record button, I didn't see it on there. Do you want to hit that too? Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is again Dean Morote from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And today we have two celebrities. Celebrities. Well, you're celebrity, Glenn, because you always appear in the TV. We're talking today about the Masters in Protection Management. And we have our alumni, Stephen Palumbo, who will talk about what he's doing and all this wonderful things he's doing at risk management. So welcome. And let's begin with our alumni, Stephen Palumbo. Could you please tell us what are you doing right now so people can know what you can do with the protection management masters?
My current position, I am a senior manager of in the security risk management practice for a security consulting firm by the name of Kroll. Actually, our founder, our namesake, has a Kroll Pavilion named after him at John Jay College. I've been with Kroll about 1.5 years. Prior to my career here, I was the senior director of security operations for Tiffany & Company. I did 20 years with them up until my new tenure here at Kroll.
So how long you have been in Kroll?
I've been with Kroll a little shy of 1.5 years, a little shy of 18 months.
You were telling us that you moved during the pandemic. How was that move during the?
I did. It was not easy. You know, there was a lot of uncertainty during the pandemic. A lot of companies were hesitant to bring people on and to hire. But just through some networking, I was able to make some connections here at Kroll through some mutual professional acquaintances that I had that were within the firm already that knew of me and knew of my background. And I was able to maneuver that into a position here. And I started with Kroll in November of 20, right during the pandemic.
Now you were doing virtual or you were in person?
No, it was all virtual.
Oh, virtual, that's even harder.
Yeah, honestly, I've been here 1.5 years and I've yet to meet my boss face to face. I've only seen him on Zoom. So yeah, it's been completely virtual since I've been here. Yeah,
I can relate. I became virtual for 1 year. And then it was very interesting because once you became in person, you go in person, I can see people in third dimension because you have been seeking in 1 dimension. So Professor Corbett, Director Corbett, you have been, so I always see you in the TV. For some reason, I click the TV and that's it. Professor talking about something. Please, could you tell us your story and how you became director of the protection management and your passion on these masters?
Sure. Thanks, Dean Morote. Yeah, I'm the current director of protection management. I've been at the college for about 26 years now. My background's in fire protection, firefighting, fire protection engineering, things like that. And as it turns out, I was actually the very first program director for protection management. So I'll take a moment just to explain how it evolved. We at one time we had a master's in the 80s and 90s in fire protection management. And you know, as we looked at it, we said, you know, we've got, you know, issues of emergency management over here and security over there. And particularly in the private sector, the folks, you know, who are working security weren't perhaps being exposed to issues of fire safety and emergency management as what we thought they should. So we ended up recreating the degree and we called it protection management because it really brings together 3 distinct fields: security, fire protection, and emergency management. And as time has gone on, and of course this was before 9/11 when we did this, since 9/11, it's become readily apparent that these fields are all aligned. You know, in particularly in the private sector, corporate world, the folks like Steve and others who work in security areas, they often are responsible for fire safety and for security. And the same goes for the fire people in the private sector. Some of them are also responsible for security and emergency management. So this degree allows students who enroll in it to sort of have a good grounding in all these three different areas specifically, and sort of bringing them together to understand how it matters that, we have a corporate headquarters in Manhattan, and we're for traditionally we were concerned about security, be it cyber security or physical security, whatever. But particularly nowadays, those same folks are directly engaged in issues of the building itself, the fire protection provided, and even more, not more importantly, but even more clearly with issues of emergency management, where they fit in, particularly with the city of New York, and how they react to each other and how they work together to provide, again, for security and safety for those building occupants and really for the city itself. So this is a very unique degree, by the way. There was, I think, one other program that Eastern Kentucky University copied us. And so I think they actually still have the program as well. So, but it is a unique degree, and it is offered. We offer regular classes, being in-person classes as well as online. It's not a completely online degree. It may be in the future, but for right now, students have a little bit of flexibility on the courses they take. So anyway, that's protection management in a nutshell. So.
Very good. So curiosity, what our students are doing, the ones who graduated, because I think they have a variety of 3 areas. Mostly, where are they, what industry they're going to work? They're working.
Well, as you'd imagine, a lot of graduate programs, and we have folks who are in the workforce already, right? And they're trying to hone their skills, make them more marketable for new positions in other places, give them a little bit more leg up, perhaps, than folks who are just focused in one of these 3 areas that I talked about. So we have a wide variety of students. For a long time, we've had, for example, members of the FDNY were in the program who made this sort of a second career kind of program for themselves, basically getting the degree, learning a lot more about security and emergency management, and then going out and doing, again, corporate work, but also consulting work. So it's a mixed bag. We have a lot of people working, again, that already have a position, who want to get promoted or want to make themselves, again, more appealing, perhaps, for a promotion. We got folks who want to move on to a better job, perhaps somewhere else, and this does make them more marketable. And then again, you got the second career people who literally finish out a career in the NYPD, which we've had a bunch students from there, the FDNY and other city agencies and stuff, who want it's sort of a new, fresh career for themselves, a second one. So that's kind of the mixed bag that we have, Dean.
Good, very good. So Steve Palumbo, I was wondering how you decided to do this master's, and could you tell us your journal
Sure.
after you graduated? Because I know you have like 20 years of experience already.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be in the inaugural class when they first, when protection management first launched. And I was interested in going back to graduate school. I have my undergraduate degree in criminal justice. I wanted a graduate degree for all the reasons, Dr. Corbett just said. I wanted to further my career. I wanted to make myself more available for promotion. So I needed something that really applied to what I was doing. And at the time I was a manager of security. I was still at Tiffany's, and I found this program. And what it did, it brought together everything I was doing currently, the security work. I learned, security management. I learned about security systems and things like that, but it broadened my horizons tremendously. The fire piece came in very handy. I was actually able to get my fire safety director certification for New York City, thanks to, what I learned at John Jay. I also learned, it made me, in my opinion, very well-rounded as a security executive, because yes, we had security management classes and fire classes, but we had other things. There were classes in HR management. There were classes in organizational theory. There were classes in budgeting. All of that I needed to further my career, within a security department, as an executive within that department. Those are the things I needed to help me advance my career. And I got all of those at John Jay in the protection management program.
So what was one of you mentioned several courses. What was one of the courses that you remember that you used it at the beginning of your career that was most connected with the things you're doing? Because depending on where you went.
They were all connected, and if I wanted to say one course that really helped me tremendously. Honestly, it was it was the budgeting class. I really needed that, because if you're running a security department, you have to know how to manage your budget, and how that budget fits into a larger organization. Security is a cost center. We don't make money for an organization. We save them money, but we don't make money. And you need to be able to effectively show the return on investment, effectively manage your budgets within your department, so that you are an effective department. You're staying cutting edge with technology, and you need to do all that. So I found that. I also found the organizational theory classes very, very helpful, in helping me kind of navigate the corporate world as a security professional. I knew my security stuff. I did. And I think those classes really enhanced what I already knew. But I think what I really got out of it was all the other things that really helped me develop as a manager and later as a director within a large organization like that.
Okay. So, doctors, and all these activities that you do after you graduate, could you talk a little more about the professors, the quality of the professors that we have, because we have full-time people, professors who are in the field. Could you please tell us more about the professors?
Professors were wonderful. A lot of them stick out. I do remember Professor Corbett, obviously. Professor McCree made a big impact on me. He was my very first professor, my very first class back in grad school. But what I also enjoyed was the wide variety of backgrounds that the professors brought in. I had a professor that was actively in the Secret Service as an analyst, who brought in, the special agent in charge. I had professors that were actually out, with their own consulting firms out in the field. It was a very large variety of different experiences that the people brought in that really stuck out for me over the years. I'm not great when it's been, I don't want to say how long ago I graduated. I'll just let you know how old I am, but it's been a very long time. So sometimes I don't remember names specifically, but I do remember that. I do remember there being a very wide variety of different experience levels from government, from private sector, from city government, federal government, that really impacted me and gave me a great good insight. And what I like too is when you're interacting with people from different industries and different level government, for instance, they give you an insight into other careers you may want to pursue. I was in the private sector, but it did kind of pique my interest into possibly looking at the public sector. So and vice versa. You had the private sector people that came in, and if to Professor Corbett's point, I was in class with a lot of NYPD, FDNY people. And I think it kind of broadened their horizons too, to let them see, hey, this is what's available in the private sector. You can take the skills you've learned serving the city of New York, and you can really parlay that into a career in the private sector.
That's excellent. Professor Corbett, what a student needs to be part of this program?
Well, certainly an interest in the program, right? So if they're in the security field or the other aligned fields, emergency management, fire safety, or occasionally we get students who have no background in this field, in this area, these different disciplines. We get a few of those too, but an interest really, is what we look for, right? So when a student applies actually to the program, or actually all the programs at John Jay, they write up a narrative, a statement of their background and why they're interested in the program. And we can kind of see in those narratives what really piques their interest, what is of importance to them in their career, basically. And so once in a while, to tell you the truth, I get an application and I go, this person actually should be applying to this other program, because I think it's probably more what they're interested in. So, but for the most part, we're looking for people who, again, have an interest. They don't necessarily have to have a background in these areas. What we provide to them is a good base foundation to build upon, so that they walk out the door after graduation having at least a fundamental understanding of the variety of issues and things that are happening in these variety of these different fields. So we're excited for really anybody who would like to pursue an area like this. And again, you heard from Steve that people have all different backgrounds. This isn't, it's one thing if you're in, you know, you're in a particular field and it's very narrow and it's sort of like, okay, this is where I'm headed and things. This is something that brings in people from diverse backgrounds, age-wise, everything, financial income,
So
all those things.
they're asking
Right.
if, so the students in Facebook are asking about, is there is a male-oriented profession or is how is that profession now?
Say again one more time. I didn't get
they
that.
asking about is a male-oriented profession?
Oh. Well, it to some extent, of course, it's been for a long time, but that's not true. I don't think anymore. I mean, you look around now, particularly again, and I'm sure Steve would agree in the security field, there's a lot of women in the security field now that are in leadership positions. You know, our acting fire commissioner right now is a woman. You know, our previous OEM director for the city of New York was a woman. She did such a good job that FEMA stole her away from New York City. So this is something that I think, you know, this isn't just a bunch of shall we say guys hanging out and things like that. This is really, this is certainly open to anyone for that matter. And as long as they have an interest in it, I think they'll find that it's really an interesting career for themselves. And again, they can sort of chart different paths and where they want to go.
Yeah, I'll echo Professor Corbett's comments on that. Yeah, maybe years ago it was kind of male orientated, but what I've seen over the last 20, 25 years is a real influx of female executives, leaders in the field. Certain organizations on the private side, as is the Loss Prevention Foundation, all of those have specific groups, you know, women in security groups, and how they lead or have become leaders in the industry. And there's a lot of companies that have female leadership at the top, running departments. So it's definitely has evolved
So
over the last 20
it's
years.
extended now.
Yes.
Now, what about the challenges? What challenges that you have in the profession now?
There's always a challenge.
Of course.
Challenge. Well, you know, I think the last 2 years has been probably the most challenging of my career because we were faced with an unprecedented event. So I think, you know, companies, organizations getting their arms around crisis management, you know, how to deal with a crisis and having proper crisis management plans in place. I think that's been the biggest challenge because I think a lot of organizations on the private side were not prepared for what happened. You know, I do a lot of work in crisis management now. I consult with a lot of firms that realized when COVID hit, they did not have the appropriate programs in place. So I think it's brought that's the challenge right now that really needs to is really evolving, because it was very hard at first. We got hit with this pandemic. Companies got shut down. Nobody could go to work, and a lot of organizations just didn't know what to do. And people in my field, especially in the consulting field, really were overwhelmed at some point, was we had to help these organizations develop these programs to get themselves back up and running.
So the challenge become opportunity for most of the people in your profession.
Yeah, it did. It was a huge opportunity. A huge opportunity.
So it's interesting because this profession, besides you can work in organization, you also become an entrepreneur, because you, as a consultant, you also are required to participate a lot. You know, it becomes interesting. So, Professor Corbett, what is the challenges being inside of the master? What the student can expect being inside where they're doing the masters?
Well, I think, you know, we always encourage students to proceed at a rate that they can handle, right? And it's sort of a culture shock to some extent for students, because coming out of an undergraduate program, you know, they're used to sort of a repetition in the way things happen in quizzes and things like that, and short-term papers, short writing assignments. In graduate school, it is different. It's a lot more writing and a lot more reading. And I think that's one of the issues that a lot of students have a challenge with, but we tell them about it. And one of the most important things we tell the students is that most of you, talking again as if I'm talking to a bunch of students, which I am, potential students, you know, we tell them, look, you all lead very busy lives. You know, very few of you will be going to school full-time without having a full-time job or family responsibilities and things like that. So the most important thing is to sort of come into the program and sort of take the classes that are required in a methodical way, in the sense that we don't want to you don't want to overload yourself with work. You have to be prepared. There is a lot more work involved per class, perhaps, than you're used to at undergraduate level. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is to sort of encourage students to think about that and to be prepared for that kind of situation. But other than that, I mean, I think, one of the things that students also ask about, what classes should I take? And there is some flexibility, in the program. As Steve mentioned, some of our core courses are actually MPA, Master of Public Administration, administrative type classes. And once in a while, there's a few classes that students are interested. Like, for example, we have a class in the MPA program called Bureaupathology, which really dissects problems in organizations, basically. And some students in the security field are particularly interested in that. So we make it so that the students have, they have a list of classes to take, but if they feel that, gee, I'd really like to take that class, what could I substitute for that? Of course, we try to accommodate all those kind of things. So it's a fun thing. It'll, these classes are set up so that they get a sort of a dip in each one of these pools, basically, at the beginning. And so, gee, I'd like to know more about that, or I kind of know a lot of this stuff. Maybe I should look more into those things. So those are the kind of challenges and things that students come to us about and, want to know about. So. Exactly.
I want to say also, yeah, it was challenging. It was a lot of reading. It was a lot of research. I also found that very rewarding. I felt I got a lot out of all of that research. I learned a lot. We're an undergrad, it's a little different. You're kind of memorizing sometimes, where you're researching and then having to, come up with your own ideas based on that research. I found that extremely rewarding.
Yeah, because you're learning, I think you're connected more with the reality.
Exactly.
So, Steve, suppose you have a student who wants to be, you will interview for a job. What kind of things you're looking for a new student, a new person who is new in the profession, who just brand new graduated from this master?
I guess somebody that has an open mind. I don't just be kind of pigeonholed into doing one thing. The current profession I am currently in, like I said, I'm a consultant now with a consulting firm, and we work across a broad array of disciplines and industries. So you need to come in with an open mind and be willing to kind of learn and put the time in. That's probably the most key thing, is being able to have an open mind about, don't just come in thinking, the days of security being, guards, guns, and gates is over. It is now, it's part of an organization, and you need to be able to learn that it's not just that. It's developing a program that fits into the organization, that fits into the culture of that organization, that provides protection, that keeps people safe, that develops the policies and the programs. But there's not a one size fits all. So you need to be able to kind of have that open mind and being willing to kind of work in any industry.
So it's being flexible of what you
Very
find.
flexible, exactly.
And it's a lot of responsibility. Security is a lot of responsibility for a person. Be conscious of all of that. So, Professor Corbett, I was wondering what the student needs to know, the prospective students needs to know before applying.
Well, as I said before, I think, if they're considering the Protection Management Master's Program, what I would suggest they do is actually, and all the students that are applying now, of course, are very familiar with Google searches and things. I would actually go and look at if they like the general area, look at the job descriptions that are out there online right now for new positions. And I think that will inform them as to basically what industry is looking for in people. Basically, as Steve just mentioned earlier, it's not gates, guns, and badges anymore. It's a lot more than that. And I think, again, person coming into our program would be really well suited to look ahead of time and say, gee, what do I enjoy doing, right? Because I mean, in all our careers, we have to enjoy what we're doing, right? I mean, that's why we do what we do. And so if you feel that this is something that, is a field that you like to get into, and to a great extent, there are more positions than there are people in a lot of cases. So that's a good thing. As you mentioned, it's a growing field. It's a field that it's so diverse now that, again, looking online to see what these jobs are, and then maybe think about that before they come into the program, say, I'd really like to focus on this particular area, and that will help guide them in terms of, again, some of the electives they may take, and then the program they do. I mean, I mentioned cybersecurity, but that's, for Steve, that's 20 years ago, that was sort of an issue, right? But now it's like, almost probably he'd maybe say it's mostly central to what he does now, I would think. So those are the kind of things that again, a prospective student should think about. Do I like this career? Can I find somebody like Steve that I know that works in this field? Let me talk to them and listen to them and see what it is. I used to do that. The undergraduate students, we used to have students who wanted to be fire investigators. And so I would send them down to the ATF down in Lower Manhattan. I said, go talk to those folks and see if that's something you'd like to do. Listen to them about what jobs they do and the kind of experiences they have and the training that they took. So anyway, that's what I would tell them, basically.
Yeah. They're asking right now if they need a test, like GRE test or entrance test for the
No,
master.
not for this program. There are other graduate programs that do have GREs, but no, there is not. We do of course look at the students' undergraduate performance, and see where they are, because that is an indicator of how well they're doing graduate school. It doesn't mean that if you didn't do well, sort of, I'll say mediocre is the word, perhaps. The mediocre at the undergraduate level, but you're perhaps a different person today than you were back then. You're a little bit more, to the, head to the grinding wheel kind of thing, where they're much more focused, then that's fine. We can look at that. And again, we look at every student that comes in. For the year now, I review every application that comes in, and we make a decision, as to whether to accept them or not. And if they're sort of borderline, we can do certain things to get them into the program and help them. I mean, we have remarkable new things that are happening, and Dean Marote might mention at the end of the program here tonight, but we actually, we're doing a lot of things to help students, not just with the classwork, but also with their writing capabilities. I have coaches working for us now on helping students in their writing, a writing coach basically. And so we do a lot of things at the college that may not be on the website that you sort of see, but we really do try to help students get through the program and get them the support they need and what have you. So
yeah, the most important is for the students is you want to do it. You have the vision on what you will do. You have to focus on what you want to do with your career, and we are here to help you. We have the last year, we have a lot of new things. We have career coaches, we have writing coaches, we have several kinds of advisors. So talking about advisors, Steve, what would be your advice for a prospective student? And also, what would be your advice for students who will be graduating in May? So you have two kinds of students, the ones who are thinking about that and the who already went, and then now they will go into the market.
I'm going to echo a lot of what Dr. Corbett said. I think what's helped me the most in my career, and what I now even do, is networking. Use the Alumni Association, and you use LinkedIn and talk to the alumni, people that have been in the program that are now in the field. I'm very involved with the Alumni Association. I mentor students now through John Jay, and I also pretty regularly have people reach out to me, through LinkedIn and say, hey, I saw that you graduated John Jay with a protection management degree. Would you be willing to talk to me? And honestly, you'll be surprised. A lot of people are very willing to have that conversation with you. I know I am. And I get a lot out of talking to students and, prospective who are looking to jump into the field and giving them that advice. So use the Alumni Association. It's very, very well done at John Jay and very helpful. And use LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and you see a job that you're interested in, it'll show you, so-and-so is an alumni of the same schools and they work here. Reach out to that person and speak to them. get their advice. They'll give you the inside. And now with everybody applying for jobs online, it helps you kind of jump the line a little bit if you have somebody in the organization that's kind of guiding you along and kind of help you in that process.
That's very good. Thank you very much, Steve, for coming to today and offering help to and mentor to our future students. I think networking is very important, and this is the part we are here, because the students need to know who are our alumni and who are our professors. Professor Corbett, your last message for our students?
Well, I look forward to everyone that's on the program tonight applying in the next few weeks. I'll be looking for you all virtually. I can't see you, but I know you're there.
Yeah,
so,
they're very excited.
That's it. So we hope, like I said, we hope he gave you a little slice of what this program's about. John Jay's a great place. It's very much a place where we get to know each other. And as Steve pointed out, there's a lot of networking going on and things. So we hope you'll apply. And again, I'll look forward to you seeing your application.
Okay, so everybody, good night, and thank you very much, Steve and Glenn, for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Take care, folks.